Secretly recorded from deep inside the bowels of a decommissioned missile silo, we bring you the man, one single man who wants to bring light to the darkness and dark to the lightness. Although he's not always right, he is always certain. So now, with security protocols in place, the protesters have been forced back behind the barricades and the blast doors are now sealed. Without further delay, let me introduce you to the host of Hutcast, Mr. Tim Hutner.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms. You can now take your post. Today on Hutcast, we have a special guest today, Gene German from www.permittocarry.us. That's 612-388-2403. Gene is going to update us on his training program and how it applies to you. Other states involved, check with your legals on those. There will be a disclaimer in front of each show so you guys know what and what not to do. Again, permittocarry.us. Look them up, check them out. This is a mini-series, guys, so you're going to have a number of shows behind this. Feel free to tune in. Thanks again for Hutcast. We'll be with you shortly.
For home and workplace comfort, we here at Dependable Heating and Air Conditioning have over 30 years of residential and commercial experience in replacing, repairing, and doing general maintenance on your heating and cooling equipment. Call the experts at Dependable Heating and Air Conditioning. For all your indoor comfort needs, we are located in Coon Rapids and serve the entire Twin Cities area. Call one of our professional technicians today at 763-757-5040. That's Dependable Heating and Cooling. Again, 763-757-5040, Dependable Heating and Air.
Leosa Trainers Incorporated and its certified firearms instructors are not attorneys and therefore do not provide any specific legal advice. The legal information contained in this information is general, non-specific information and should not be construed as legal advice to be applied to any specific factual situation. As the law differs in each legal jurisdiction, it may be interpreted or implied differently, depending upon your location or your situation. This training is not a substitute for the advice of your attorney.
Welcome back to Hutcast. Today we have a very special guest in our studio. He trains people how to, what not to, and how to expect in a self-defense situation while carrying a weapon. Gene, welcome back to the show. Hutcast is rolling, and I told everybody we'd leave off at properly insuring yourself. We did do that, so now we're at police routine encounters.
Years ago, I think we used to train people to be more leery and more maybe afraid of the police. As the law was recently changed from a discretionary issue to shall issue in Minnesota back in 2003. And at that time, the police weren't really sure what to expect. They didn't know if having a lot of armed citizens walking around was going to be a problem or if it was going to go well. Over the years, they've had enough interaction with us, traffic stops and meeting us at the grocery store and the gas stations and wherever they run into us, just doing what we're doing as they're doing what they're doing, that I think they've started to change their attitude. I was a registered lobbyist in 2005 when we reenacted the Minnesota Personal Protection Act, and the police and the sheriff's associations 2 years earlier were rabidly opposed to this change in the law. And in 2 years, they went from rabidly opposed to at least being neutral. They weren't going to fight it. They weren't going to do what they could to help us. I think today, if we had to reenact this statute for any reason, the police and the sheriff's departments would be in favor of it. Over the years, I think the police have seen enough of us they really more identify with permit holders than the general public as being more similar to them. So it's just going to happen that sometimes you're going to run into a police officer doing what they do. Maybe they're parked in the parking lot next to you, and you go to your vehicle, and if they notice that you're armed, how are you going to deal with this? So we talk about that both in a non-vehicular setting as well as a vehicular setting, because when you're in your car, the rules are a little bit different and how you're going to respond to the police.
At that point, do you feel, because I know I would feel that the police officer at that point has started their investigation. They're on the page of, okay, why does he have a gun? What's the reason? What's your thought there?
I've never been asked why I'm carrying a gun. If to be honest, I don't believe I've ever been asked to show my permit, and they've seen the firearm. I'm guessing that they figure if the guy is willing to walk around showing me that he has a firearm, he has a permit for it. But it's their privilege if they want to ask, and I would give it to them and explain that I had a permit, certainly. Routine police encounters are typically situations where arrest isn't in the picture. It could be that I'm being pulled over because I have a taillight out, or for any other reason. Maybe I am going too fast. But there's, like I said, there's ways that we suggest people handle themselves and behave. Of all the police officers that I've trained throughout the years, every one of them has some story where they've said, we were just going to give the guy a warning, and we went up to the window, and he was such a jerk, we gave him the ticket. Mm-hmm. And the opposite has been true, where they were going to give the ticket, and they went up to the window, and it went so well, they thought, well, let's give them a break. They're people. They react just like you would. Yeah,
you shit in, shit out, right?
Exactly.
I was pulled over in my pickup, wasn't paying attention. I was going somewhere, and I'm doing 72 in a 55, and I seen the guy come around on me, and there I am. Mm-hmm. I went, okay, well, there's no fight here. Pulled over. I had to wait 2 minutes for him to catch up. That's how far we were apart, and he still made that effort to come get me.
Good for him.
He comes to the window and says, how do you do it? Is there any particular reason why you're going that fast? I looked at him and says, absolutely not. He got this look on his face like I just shot his cat. And I said to him, no. And he says, well, then why were you going that fast? And all I could think of at the time, because fortunately I'm not going to lie to the guy. I mean, I have a lot of cop friends, and I'm not going to be that dork who wants to be that guy you just described.
Right.
And I said, Creed. He looked at me. What do you mean, Creed? I pointed to my playlist on my phone, which is in my carrier on the dash, and I says, Creed, dude. I'm doing a truck with 900 foot-pounds of torque, and I'm just cruising along. I had no idea, and I wasn't even paying attention. So, guilty. Mm-hmm. You got me. And he looks at me and says, huh. Goes back to his car, runs my plate, sees a spotless record, and comes back and says, dude, I'm not nicking you. First of all, you couldn't have been more honest.
Good for you.
And that was it. I went on my way, and he says, well, change your playlist, would you?
That's the best policy. And the trick question that I think people get tripped up on all the time is that if the officer looks at you and said, have you had anything to drink today? Most people lie. If I asked you that question, how would you respond?
Yeah.
If it were right now, right today, in this moment, how would you respond to him?
I guess I'd have to qualify the question. What are you asking drink? Drink like is an alcohol or water, whiskey, booze? What are we talking? So for me, I'm more analytical, and I would say define drink.
Well, drink is just that, some liquid.
Well, certainly I had a drink today. I had water this morning. I had milk at lunch. Yeah, I would say yeah.
But people hear that question and immediately convert it to some form of an alcoholic question. Have you had beer, wine, whiskey, whatever? Mm-hmm. And that's not the question. The question is, have you had anything to drink today?
No, I'm completely dehydrated. You got anything in your car?
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Of course I have. I just haven't had any alcohol today, but I've had things to drink.
Yeah, but at that point, you're already chicken winged and up against your truck, and maybe you get the wrong guy who don't understand the question either.
But they understand the question. We are at a serious disadvantage when we're talking to the police. They're trained to get people to say things that they don't really want to say. Mm-hmm. And when they ask that question, they know what they're going to get back. It's an answer to a question they never asked. So that's just one tip. If somebody stops you and they say, have you had anything to drink today? And you have, be it water, coffee, pop, whatever it might be, other than alcohol, admit it. Say, yes, I have.
Let's hope the cops have that same theory.
They know.
Yeah, I've heard these tactics from some police buddies, and they're like, I'm going to tell you to do this, and we're gonna walk the line, and we're going to do this, and then don't do it until we start go, and okay, let's ready.
Mm-hmm.
And they start walking the line, and then the new, it's on tape, so they knew he started touching his nose. And I said, I didn't tell you to start yet. Bing, we got him. Chicken winged and handcuffed in the back of the squad.
Here you go. There you go.
Okay, so we covered that. Proper insurance of routine police encounters. Active intruder. Get me on to speed on active intruder, Gene.
This bothered me after the Las Vegas attack, and I kept kind of projecting myself as being in that concert crowd when the shooting started and the chaos started, and here I'm an armed citizen in a crowd of a bunch of panicked individuals. They don't know who I am. I don't wear a uniform, and if anybody spotted that I was armed, what kind of reaction would that have caused? Mm-hmm. And I thought we need to talk about this, because I don't have any idea if I'm ever in a situation where there's an active intruder attacking a group of people. How am I going to get myself out of there in one piece without getting hurt? So I've got about 60 instructors that I've certified around the country, and one of them is a deputy police chief up in Crookston. And so I talked with him and I said, I'm curious, do you guys have any information on this? And he said, yeah, we've got about an hour and a half, 2 hour presentation on active intruders. Mm-hmm. I said, would you send it to me? And do you care if I edit it down to about 10 or 15 minutes, because I can't add 2 hours onto a 6 hour class.
Right.
So he did. And so that's where our information comes from. To discuss active intruders. I want people to give this some thought, that you don't know if there's going to be an attack in a mall or where you might be when it happens, and how are you going to behave? What do you need to be thinking of? You can't cover in 10 minutes every possible scenario.
Certainly not.
But there are some common denominators that are probably going to be true that you need to be aware of and thinking about. And if we can just get that much done, if that ever happens to any of my students, they're gonna have some kind of a roadmap that may give them some calm in a chaotic situation.
Mm-hmm. And again, once you're in that spot, you don't know how you're going to react. You just trust your training.
Well, and it's part of what I think we need to be talking about these days, unfortunately.
Right. Again, to say in our choices, these people make these choices for us.
Exactly.
And we're in the situation that we don't want to be in. So that shows that you're not intent. So I get you. I hear you, and it makes sense. Let's see here. We've got that active intruder. Move to the next slide. Choose a handgun. We've already covered that, but we did not cover ammunition.
Ammunition is really kind of specific to the gun itself. The ammunition I carry is made for my firearm. I have a revolver that weighs 17.5 ounces. It's aluminum scandium. And if I shoot regular full pressure 357, it's got 7 shots. If I shoot regular 357 full pressure ammunition in it, you do not want to pull the trigger the 7th time. It really hurts.
So you're running plus P's?
So no, I'm running a Spear short barrel gold dot. It's a 357 cartridge, but it's subsonic. So the speed of the bullet is actually 990 feet per second. So it shoots easier than a 38 special would in a 357. So again, it's a matter of, what gun do I have and what ammunition works the best in that firearm? We used to agonize over what the district attorney was going to think. And if you buy the type of ammunition that a 9mm can take a 500-pound bore down with, you probably have a problem at the DA's office, because you're using ammunition that no one can survive being shot with it.
Okay, so that segues me into a plus P and an RIP round. Are you familiar with RIP?
No, I'm not.
So the technical term is rest in peace, but it's not. It's a 9mm laser cut injected type of round that is dedicated and designed to go through vests. It's designed to go through, and what I've talked about earlier in the show here is overkill. Would this qualify to having a plus P laser round, laser cut, the whole? I mean, it's some pretty badass stuff.
Well, one of the things that ammunition needs to do is its job, but not over-penetrate. You don't want it through and through. You don't want someone that shouldn't be shot getting shot. And one of the reasons we really do recommend hollow points is because they'll not only do damage as they're going through the target, but they act as a parachute or a brake as they're doing that to stop before they exit the back of the person and into someone else.
For collateral, sure.
So it's the thing that you have to think about. If you're shooting something that is intent to really do as much damage and harm as possible, and I'm really just trying to get a change of behavior. If they weren't threatening me, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all, right?
Oh, for sure.
So I don't need something like that, especially if I know that 92 out of 100 times, once he sees the end of my barrel, it's over. I don't need to pull the trigger at all. So I would be guarded against buying ammunition or using ammunition in a carry gun that was designed to be extra lethal.
Well, again, the G2 Research RIP ammo, it comes in 380, it comes in 9mm. I'm certainly not advocating for these guys, but I do use it personally. It's designed to hollow point, it is designed to fragment, and it's not a collateral increasing ammo.
If it's designed to fragment, are you going to get the penetration that you need?
Well, that's the laser cut part.
Okay.
It's a Swiss knife. It's almost like a flechette round for the 12 gauge. Familiar with those?
Yeah, and in some states, those are illegal. So you've got to check with your state laws if you're going to use anything that's out of the ordinary and see if that's a round that they're going to allow to be sold or used in that state.
And according to the state of Minnesota, we don't want to overkill them because then that, of course, adds to your financial stress and worry. You could be all right in the situation, end up with ammo that is wrong, and then they could use that against you.
And they will.
And they will, yes. Okay, so we covered that. Ammunition makes sense. We got a handle on that. Mechanics of everyday carry. What are we talking there?
This is just the do's and don'ts of how you negotiate yourself as an armed citizen in a largely unarmed society. There's going to be, call them societal issues, if you will. What do you do if you're at the grocery store and a lady walks up to you and says, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." She said, "Are you afraid?" This truly happened to me the other day. And I said, "No, I'm not. Why should I be?" "Well, I see you're carrying a gun." I said, "I carry a gun to maintain my constant state of peace. I don't carry a gun to react to a known threat. I carry a gun to be sure that I don't have to worry about a threat."
Uh-huh. Oh, boy.
And she kind of rattled that around in her, kind of shook her head a little bit and thought about it. And she said, "Well, I hope you never have to shoot anybody."
Yeah, me too.
I said, "Me too. I've got $20 worth of ammo in this gun. It's expensive."
I've had the same situation, but I was more of a jokester when I said it. I carry usually 2 to 3 guns. I'm a +1, +2 guy.
Mm-hmm.
And someone asked me, "What the heck are you afraid of?" And I says, "Not a doggone thing."
Well, and you don't need to. It really kind of depends on how the question's posed. If they're truly curious, and I'm okay with that, because Emily Post has nothing in her book about how you open up a conversation with a guy carrying a gun. So if they're truly interested in knowing why I'm armed, my standard answer is that I have the right to be my own first responder, and I exercise it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't understand that, we can continue that conversation. But it does come up sometimes, and I'm sure this person probably was not someone who owned a gun or would ever own a gun and was maybe even afraid of guns. But she at least had the courage to ask me some questions, and I'm a trainer, and I kind of look at this and go, okay, if I can give somebody some data points that's different from what they hear on the news every night, then I'm willing to do that. I'm glad to do that.
And if they're asking, they're usually not too afraid of it. They're curious, and maybe that's that door you can open for someone.
Exactly.
Okay. Pop in the next frame here. Firearm safety. We kind of covered some of that, but
Yes.
we didn't shoot. Shooting qualifications is kind of a different bird, isn't it?
Well, with us it is. For years, we would talk about the judicious use of force in class and being careful about not over applying force and that kind of thing. And then we would take people to the range and give them 5 or 10 round magazines and see how fast they could, drain the magazine into a target. And it occurred to me that's kind of contrary to what we just talked about in the class. We take them to the range and tell them we don't care about how many times you're pulling the trigger, just get rid of the ammunition. There was no thinking involved. And so our shooting qualification has changed where we shoot 2 to the heart lung and 1 to the pelvis. So there's 3 shots. And as they're bringing the gun up, there's 6 in the magazine. So they're bringing the gun up for the 4th shot. I want people to be thinking, do I need to continue? Well, they'll do 2 more to the heart lung and then 1 more to the pelvis. And that's our 6 shots. So we're trying to break habits of taking a 30-round magazine and just bang, 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 bang until you get click, click, click. Because if you train that way, when you're under stress on the street, that's what you're going to do. And in every magazine, it's potentially possible that in every magazine, there's a round that transitions from righteous to excessive. And if you're not thinking, like my dad told me, if you're not thinking about what you're doing, you're going to go right by that excessive round into the next excessive round and into the next excessive round. And that means you're going to end up in court explaining why you shot the guy 30 times. And
not all of us are professional carriers. I mean, you don't know the situation until you're there.
Well, you don't. And you're going to, like I said, you're going to resort to your training. So if we can break the habit of just going out and draining the magazine and going, all right, we want to talk, shoot 2 to the heart lung and 1 to the pelvis. We don't go to the head for the 3rd shot. And the reasons are if I shoot somebody 2 in the chest, chances are he's not going to get taller. He might get shorter. And if I instinctively drop the gun to go to the pelvis, I might end up shooting him in the head anyway.
Going to meet him there.
But if he's standing and you bust his pelvis up, the blood supply, if you're looking for circulatory collapse, the blood supply to the pelvis is better than a torso shot unless you get lucky. So it'll be over if you take somebody's pelvis out.
And really, you don't want to be in that spot anyway. And most police, what do you call it? Protection? Police protection vests, safety vests?
Body armor.
Yeah, they don't even get below the belt on most of these guys.
And that's another reason for the pelvis. If you're dealing with a perp that does have body armor on, your first 2 shots are just going to irritate them, but the 3rd shot's going to end it.
Because your chance of hitting the head in a stress situation with the adrenaline running through you are very minimal.
And your chance of shooting the wrong person go up.
Right. Collective or collateral damage.
Yep. So we don't want that.
Okay, I've jumped ahead in some of the deal here. It says in your flyer, Minnesota relevant laws. Let's brief on some of these. And again, people, to go through his class, you need to be a member. Get on his website, check him out. What's the website again?
It's permittocarry.us.
Get in, sign up, get them all going. If he's mobile, then get a bunch of guys together and make this happen. But you'll get more detail, more definition when he comes to you. So in this segment, we just want to kind of get you a hands-on, because we're running 21 minutes into this, and we got about 5 minutes to cover. So go.
Well, the state legislature in this state, as many states have now, reserves to the legislature the right to regulate firearms. The only thing that they allow local units of government to do is regulate discharge. So if it deals with firearms at all, the legislature has the exclusive authority to do that. We have a permit to carry law in Minnesota. We don't have a concealed carry law. So the fact is, my office is in Orono. The city of Orono can't enact a local ordinance that says we don't like to see Gene walking around in Orono with a gun on. So in Orono, you have to conceal it. The fact that the legislature didn't address it doesn't create a vacuum that they can fill with a local ordinance. So that's the reason why that's important. Once you have a Minnesota permit, it's good border to border. You don't have to change your behavior as you're moving from county to county or city to city.
I did not know that.
A Minnesota permit replaces our need to get a permit to acquire.
Yes.
So once you have that, it's good for 5 years, so you don't have to keep going back to your local police department and asking them if it's okay if you buy guns.
And for the listeners out there, as an FFL, a permit to acquire is good for 1 year, located at your police station. They run a system check or an NIC check on you, and then they give you this little piece of paper that allows you to purchase handguns, not rifles, not shotguns. You can still purchase those, but it is only good for a year. They normally don't charge you. When you go to the permit to carry, it's a whole different thing. Again, he said 5 years. It's the real deal. And again, you can buy as many as you want.
And the reason why this is true is because the sheriff does do an annual background check on all permit holders anyway. Make sure that Gene's been a good boy all year. So it essentially does what the police chief would have been doing in terms of a background check anyway. So I get 5 background checks in a 5-year period. So that's the reason.
Well, become an FFL. We're a Class 7. We're just short of non-destructive devices or destructives. That's a Class 10. I didn't have EOD in the military. They wouldn't allow me to have an explosive license, but I had just about everything else, and it was quite a process. You know, I never wanted to get fingerprinted, but man, I got every print on the books now. And it's 10 times what you could ever imagine going through the process.
Imagine your file with the FBI is an impressive one.
I believe it is quite comprehensive, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so did we cover pretty good in this slide?
Yes.
Okay, and Minnesota Statute 609 regulates the authority of use of force.
609.06 regulates the authorized use of force. It does not authorize the use of lethal force. So it basically just says that if you're being attacked, you have the right to defend yourself, or if someone's being attacked, you have the right to come to their aid if that's appropriate.
Okay, hold on now. You said a sideways word for me. The right to protect someone else. If a perp comes into McDonald's and he wants to shoot the place up, you're eating. If he don't point the gun or sweep you with the gun, last I heard is you do not have the right to take him out.
If others are equally in danger, that would qualify. If it were you that he was attacking, and you would be qualified in using force to defend yourself, if that were true for others, the same thing. It kind of requires you to be psychic if you're walking in on something in progress. But if you were there when it started, you might know this is what it is. I recognize what it is, and you have the ability to defend other people. Susanna Hupp wrote the introduction to our book and was at Luby's Cafe in Killeen, Texas in 1991 when the guy drove his truck through the window and started shooting people. It took her 45 seconds to appreciate what was going on.
Okay.
And her gun was in her truck, so she couldn't do anything about it. But if she had a firearm with her when that happened, she would have been authorized to stop that guy from killing other people if she was able to do that.
And what would the legal ramifications be at that point?
As a good Samaritan, you're not required to do anything, but you're also not liable if you do. Wow.
Well, that's the polar opposite of what I've been trained on. And they said, look, if they sweep you, you got every right, you had every intention. But if you shoot him in the back of the head because he's shooting at somebody else, you still don't have lethal force or lethal right.
I would disagree with that. I would also agree that if I'm not being swept, it's just going to be too bad for you.
Well, again, I don't think any cop on the planet or any prosecutors are going to say, hey, you didn't sweep him good enough, but, they ain't going to be in that situation, and I highly doubt they'll grab after that. But
Well, we teach in a vacuum where we can set the situation up to suit what we're trying to do, trying to explain. When you get in real life, as I said, it's all shades of gray. There's very few bright lines. So you're going to have to be able to explain what was happening and why you acted as you did, and it should pass the smell test. If a guy was just walking in the door and he hadn't threatened anybody, but you knew this person was a criminal or a bad guy, but he hadn't done anything, you don't get the right to shoot him just because you know he's a bad guy.
Yeah, no, and certainly not. And again, you'd have to be in the situation where they're actually starting to kill people. And again, everybody says, "Oh, I'm going to do this," and pump their chest out. And,
I know.
And I don't know, boy. That's a lot to think about because it's your freedom on the line to save others. But how do you not? How do you not engage that when you know that you can stop this?
It's a decision you have to make. If you engaged the threat and it ended up going badly for you when you didn't need to, you're going to go home in a box instead of go home in your car.
You're going downtown.
Yeah, or downtown if you're still alive.
Right.
But again, it's a matter of do you want to walk into a situation and engage it? We're having lunch one time with Jim Franklin, who was the executive director of the Sheriff's Association, and we posed that question. Said, Jim, if somebody came through the door right now and started causing trouble, what would you do? And he said, well, I would run toward it. I says, I'm heading to the exit.
Don't write the report?
Exactly. I'll be a good witness, but I'm not going to do that.
Okay, we are 9 minutes into this segment, and we have to cut a break. So, Hutcast, we thank you for tuning in. We're going to make it to the next section. Stand by. We'll be right with you.
Now a word from our sponsors. Today's sponsor in part by Excel Roofing. Excel Roofing. They do it all. Roofs, siding, framing. You need a house? Give Excel a call. I've used these guys personally in the past. Have a professional crew. They're conscious of your job, and they want to produce the finest quality of craftsmanship available. Excel Roofing, 763-712-0757. Again, 763-712-0757. Excel Roofing, Dayton, Minnesota.
All right, we are back with Hutcast. Special guest today, Gene. Gene trains people how to, what to, and how not to. And we are going to pick up where we left off. It is a 609.065. Gene, you got the mic.
But Tim, this one's a one-sentence law. The title is Justifiable Taking of Life. And it's amazing to me that the legislature can write in one sentence everything you need to know about the justifiable taking of life. The good news is they didn't. But this is how it reads. This is a Minnesota statute now, so it will only apply here. Intentional taking of life of another is not authorized by 609.06. And then there's an exception. Except when necessary in resisting or preventing an offense which the actor reasonably believes exposes the actor or another to great bodily harm or death, and preventing the commission of a felony in the actor's place of abode. This is tricky, and it's full of pitfalls. First of all, you've got to be preventing an offense, so you can't have incurred it. You've got to stop it before it happens. That requires that you're psychic, which you reasonably believe is exposing you or another, this is where you can come to someone else's aid, to great bodily harm or death. Well, you know what death means. That's easy. But what does great bodily harm mean? Because you're going to say, well, I was exposed to great bodily harm, and they're going to go, what was the harm that what was the threat that you were facing that you thought was going to result in great bodily harm? Well, if you don't know what great bodily harm is, it's really difficult to come out of this and have an explanation. I've asked my students, what do you think that means? Well, you're really hurt bad. Well, okay. But there's actually a state law that it's Minnesota 609.02 and subdivision 7 that defines the 3 levels of harm that we have. And the first one is bodily harm, which is really just any minor injury. It's not a big deal. We have substantial bodily harm, which is bodily injury, which involves a temporary but substantial disfigurement, or which causes a temporary but substantial loss or impairment of the function of any bodily member or organ, which causes a fracture. So a guy could take a 2x4 and hit you hard enough that it broke your arm or your leg. That's not sufficient to shoot them. Great bodily harm is bodily injury, which creates a high probability of death or causes a serious permanent disfigurement, or causes a permanent or protracted loss or impairment of the function of any bodily member, organ, or other serious bodily harm. So the difference between these two is one is temporary and one's permanent. And death is permanent, so you can understand why that comes under great bodily harm. Well, the problem that we have is when you're under an attack, you can't tell them apart. If someone broke your leg or broke your arm, how are you going to know that you're going to mend perfectly at the time you're being attacked or not? So you don't. You really don't. But the key here is that you reasonably believe exposed you to this. So can you believe things that aren't true, but reasonably believe them? All the time. People have this. You don't have to be right. You just have to be convincing. Why was this happening, or what was happening to you, causing you to believe that you were going to have permanent injury as opposed to a temporary injury? Now, you may have a condition where if someone injured you in a certain way, that it would be more serious for you than it would be for me or for someone else. The guy that's attacking you doesn't know what your medical history is. So for you, if you and I were facing the same threat, it would be perceived differently by both of us because of our age, our size, our medical conditions that we have. It won't be the same for each of us.
So the proper term is what?
You've got to have an actual and honest belief that you are exposed to death or great bodily harm, and you've got to be able to articulate that.
Okay. And was that 609.065?
Yes.
Okay, because you had said 09066.
Well, 609.06 it does not justify or authorize the use of justifiable lethal force.
Okay.
This is the exception to that.
065 is the exception.
065 is the exception.
Okay. And we're going to jump forward to the 624.7181 regulates carry of long guns in public. I've seen that. I've come home from work and I see a bunch of carriers. And again, I host some sites, some hate book sites. And these guys are walking around with this. And I simply put out there, hey, what's going on with this deal? And I get attacked by some people. And they're doing their constitutional carry. They hate book. It's how they do it. What gives there?
Well, the Minnesota permit to carry says it is a pistol, to carry a pistol. It's right on the card. Doesn't say firearm. It says pistol. So this law, 624.7181, allows you to carry a long gun in public as long as you have a permit to carry a pistol.
Oh.
Now, this is really stupid. I mean, a lot of things you can do that are legal that don't make sense or they're not common sense. This could be easily abused. I mean, I could strap on my M1 Garand over one shoulder and my Evo Black Rifle over the other and walk downtown Minneapolis, and go shop, and it'd be legal. I'd scare all the women and horses doing it. So you don't want to do that. So where's the practical application in this statute?
Right.
If I were deer hunting with that M1 Garand and I shot a deer late in the day and now I'm field dressing it, dropping its, tasty entrails out for wolves or bear or whatever might be in the area, attracting nuisance, I'm not safe until I'm done with that animal and I'm back in the truck. And if it's beyond a half an hour past sunset, normally hunters have to unload their firearms and encase them. Because of this statute, I don't have to do that. I could keep that deer rifle loaded in the event a bear showed up or a coyote or somebody that I really didn't want to encounter. and dispatch it if need be, if it were appropriate to do that before I get back in the car.
So the correlation between hunting and walking downtown with your M1A Grand is
significant. There's got to be an element of common sense in this.
Well, you said common sense, and we got a lot of tree hugger, open-toe sandal, hemp-wearing T-shirt people that wear a man bun.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't use common, and common sense ain't common enough. So if they're downtown and they got the big black scary one, and you got your M1, do they still have that right to walk around with it?
Oh, they do. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Is there's got to be some, when it comes to guns, unlike anything else, when that shooter shot the people up in Las Vegas, I had to destroy my bump stock that I'd owned for 10 years, and nobody knew it, nobody cared. But because of what he did, I got blamed for it. And so, there's drunk drivers driving drunk, killing people. People know I have a driver's license. I don't get blamed for that. But if it's a gun, I will. And so we owe it to each other to try to do our best to inform others that, although there's a law that says you can do this, do it in the context that it should be done in. Don't abuse it. Because if you draw attention to yourself, the legislature will take note of that, and they have the ability to do something about this law and get rid of it, which I wouldn't want them to do.
So let's dip that into H.R. 8, H.R. 9 of the red flag laws. That same sentence you just said about how someone draws attention to it and now the rest of us suffer from it. H.R. 8 was not passed. H.R. 9 was not passed. I mean, we've got a weird Senate. We've got a weird House in Minnesota, and it would never pass because we're a Republican big house. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. Nothing's ever dead in St. Paul.
Okay.
If it doesn't pass this time, it just goes into somebody's desk drawer until the timing is better, where they can control either the Democrats control everything or the Republicans control everything. It never dies. Bad legislation never dies. and if you introduce bad legislation, you can't make it better by tweaking it. It's bad to begin with.
Yeah, it's a bad bill to start, right? I get it.
So you can't make a bad bill good, other than don't pass it.
Well, we've had senators on the show in the past. We've talked about gun control. You get a lot of skirting around the action. They don't want to engage because it's a career suicide if you're on the wrong trail. And I'm just like, these are real things for guys like us. I mean, Democrats, Republicans, doesn't matter what you are. But when you start stepping on freedoms, now you have my attention.
Well, it's odd that you say that because we just went through a year of infringing on our constitutionally protected rights by one man, and people accepted it.
I think they're still accepting it, aren't they?
They are.
Mm-hmm.
They are. And I'm thinking, we have a law in this state that says it's illegal to conceal your identity.
Right.
We do.
Yeah.
And that includes face masks, unless a doctor has prescribed those. Well, it may come as a shock to some people to know that I have the exact same medical degree that our governor has.
Or Bill Gates.
Or Bill Gates or Joe Biden or anybody else.
Yes, I think we all have that degree.
So here we have a situation where people are willingly staying home, willingly killing their businesses, willingly killing their jobs, giving up freedoms to associate, or any other number of things that are wrong.
In the name of?
In the name of do it for the kids, I guess. I don't know.
I still can't figure that out. And I don't want to turn this into a political episode. We'll have that one later in life. But you are absolutely right. I'm on that page. And we'll have a conversation of critical race theory in conjunction with those rights.
Good.
So I get it. I've got you there. Let's see here. We've got guns in public. 609.66 subdivision 1G regulates carry within a capital complex or courthouse.
Well, this kind of ties back to what we've been talking about in terms of common sense. Mere mortals cannot take a firearm into the Capitol or the Capitol complex, which is everything over in the city of St. Paul, except for the National Guard Armory.
Mhm.
So it's a state office building and the transportation building and the Capitol itself, that kind of stuff. It's a felony if you do that. If you have a permit to carry, then you may carry into the Capitol. I have had conversations with people that were armed, openly carrying in the Capitol, and I don't approve of that. And it's for the same reason. There are people that don't like it, that have the ability to change it. So why poke them and make that happen?
Don't kick that mud.
Pick your fight. If we're there to talk about a bill that we don't want or a bill that we do want, let's focus the conversation on that issue, which is what got you out of your house and over to the Capitol to begin with. You didn't go there just to show people that you have a gun on your hip and you can do that, because that's stupid.
So let me recap that. You say if you have a permit to carry, you can carry at the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
See, now my other training says that's a no. You can't carry in any federal buildings.
It's not a federal building. It's a state building.
Oh, there's the difference. There's my confusion. So literally, unless you're going into the FBI office downtown in St. Paul, you don't have a problem.
Not in the state capitol. There was a time when we had to notify the Commissioner of Public Safety that we had a permit to carry, and when we go to the Capitol, we'll be armed. We no longer have to do that as of about 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But you do need a permit, and if you're going to be armed at the Capitol, you do need a permit to do that. Courthouses, you need to notify the sheriff.
Well, I'm pretty heavy in the local politics in my city, and I did contact our police chief, and I says, "Hey, I'm carrying. Is it a problem in this government office?"
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Not in this one."
Mm-mm.
And I went, "Okay." I didn't carry my telling +3, but hey, we're not going there.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
So that covers our 609.66 Subdivision 1G. We are 14 minutes into this segment. I think we should pop for a commercial. That way we can break it into threes on the main edit. Gene, stand by. We're gonna take a break.
Okay. I'd like to talk to you today about security, home security, business security. We here at ProTech Security care about your safety. We've been keeping honest people honest, we like to say, and give dishonest people something to think about for over 20 years. Not only provide high-tech security systems for your home and business, we also provide basic network and router management LAN and Wi-Fi for our residential customers. Support audio and video monitoring systems, card access, security systems, cellular phone amplifiers, home entertainment systems, and much, much more. We have experienced technicians that will design a system that will work for you. We are located in Osseo, Minnesota, and are waiting to design a system to meet all your specifications. That's right, ProTech Security. Give us a call, 763-493-2020. We are pro at keeping honest people honest. ProTech Security, 763-493-2020. ProTech Security Systems.
And that's a wrap for HUDcast. Today on HUDcast, Gene German in www.permittocarry.us. Phone number there is 612-388-2403 in the Leoso Training Group. So again, for HUDcast, we hope you enjoyed this show. If you like us, give us a thumbs up and tell your friends. Again, this is a mini-series for HUDcast. Thanks for tuning in.